Hey everybody, it is Brandon McDonald. I am a graduate student here at MTSU, here to give you a presentation today called Reinventing Experience. It is a co-branding partnership proposal for Hard Rock International and iHeartMedia. So this is today's graduate case study by me. So just a quick foundation about the case study. I was selected with option one, which was to develop a new partnership proposal for either a corporate brand, pitching to an agency, or entertainment brand. So in this case, I have selected to partner Hard Rock International, which is our corporate brand, with iHeartMedia, which is our agency entertainment brand. Just a quick background about the two organizations. So fun story for Hard Rock International as to how they got started. In 1971, you have two Americans living in London, Isaac Tigard and Peter Morton. They wanted to find an American burger while living in London. They were not successful, and they decided, like most entrepreneurs, to do it themselves. So they opened up Hard Rock Cafe and an old Rolls-Royce dealership. And they were given a 6-month initial lease. So the rumor goes that they weren't given much credit and success to begin with, but here we are today. As of 2007, the Seminole Tribe of Florida had purchased Hard Rock and now has venues in more than 76 countries around the world with operations in hotels and resorts, cafes, casinos, merchandise, and music and entertainment. For iHeartMedia, who specializes in radio broadcasting, they are the largest audio company in the country with over 850 stations. During the growth of the digital age, iHeartMedia has advanced in additional audio fields such as podcasting and satellite radio, and etc., while strengthening in the area of advertising and attempting some live entertainment. So most of us are familiar with the iHeartRadio Music Festival and lots of marketing and promotion coming from iHeartRadio. So there are your two brands. Just wanted to kind of give you a quick background of the two. We'll jump right in, and I want to go ahead and address the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities for both. So we'll start with Hard Rock International. Most people know that they have a great success in their global presence. They are international. So that is off the top one of their strengths, because that means they've got several markets that they're involved in. So they're no stranger to certain demographics and areas. Success in sub-industries, as mentioned before, they are not just involved in the dining area, but they are involved in hotels and resorts, hospitality, casino gaming, music and entertainment, live entertainment, as well as merchandise. If you're like me, every time you go somewhere, there's a Hard Rock Cafe, I stop in and get a pin. So they get lots of retail money from me. They also have success in their brand portfolio. They have an extensive portfolio that centers around those Hard Rock cafes and Hard Rock hotels and resorts. Usually their live entertainment and their retail is involved inside of their hotels and resorts and dining facilities. So there's a little bit of 2-in-1 almost. So those are some really good strengths I wanted to point out. They do have some weaknesses. So they actually have some failures in situational consumer use of their brand. What that means is most people think of them as hotels and resorts. Why do people go to Hard Rocks? So what makes them go to a Hard Rock? And meaning, is it for Thanksgiving? Am I traveling on vacation? When they could be leveraging their brand in other ways. So it's not just situational, like, hey, I need to book a hotel because I'm going to the Bahamas. Let me find a Hard Rock. What else could they be leveraging to get more use out of their brand? They do have some failures in leveraging entertainment. They're actually pretty big entertainment wise, given their casino history. But they also have mingled into live entertainment as well. And so there's lots of actual venues that they have and own that you don't actually hear about, that you don't hear majors, pop stars attending or performing at, or any kind of experience regarding live entertainment. So there's failure to leverage their entertainment that they're actually almost branding themselves off of. And then they've got some failures in marketing, especially across different platforms. You typically don't see a lot of branding and marketing for Hard Rock cafes. That tends to be slightly local, and it tends to be more geared towards their casino experiences. But they do in fact have these other areas such as their restaurants and the bars. They do have those entertainment venues, as well as they have those retail areas. So you don't hear much about, being able to take advantage of those, because they've got some work to do in their marketing area. They do have some opportunities. So an expansion of the brand into local marketplaces. While they do have an international portfolio, you don't catch them in cities, say as Chattanooga, Tennessee, or your small towns, such as maybe very tiny town like Woodbury. There is some opportunity, and those are just maybe um, some exaggerated examples of locations. But when most people think of their Hard Rocks, they actually think of international. There's several in Asia. You've got the Caribbean. You've got these big resorts, say in like the Dominican Republic, those areas. So they've got some opportunities to leverage into their more domestic, local areas, which can actually help strengthen their brand. Expansion and leveraging theme aspect of business strategically. So what that means is that there is some opportunity, and the theme is in quotation marks here, referring to the Hard Rock itself. And that actually kind of plays into the next opportunity they have as well, expansion into genre diversity. So looking at it from a business standpoint, think about their live entertainment, think about their dining areas, the dining facilities, their hotels and resorts. There's this Hard Rock. If you've seen a Hard Rock, their hallways are just covered in history of, music stars, of all sorts. But it still has this one central theme of rock music, anything that rock stems from. And so there's some expansion there, especially being in 2020 and what we know more about our industries and music and the way we get our entertainment. They've got some opportunities where they can step outside of that and actually individualize and brand in those different areas, and go beyond just hard rock. While you can still keep some of those same elements, there's definitely a lot more opportunity for them to leverage other genres, and break outside of that theme in their business. They do have some threats to them, like most organizations. Industry competition by far is the most significant. You've got other organizations such as Marriott International. That's probably their leading competitor as far as hospitality and hotels and resorts. You've got Live Nation, who is probably the top organization for live entertainment, and Hard Rock does actually do a significant amount in regards to live entertainment, but they've got some competition there as well. Industry innovation. So as far as this refers to their dining facilities, what would make someone want to come to a Hard Rock restaurant when I can still order to go from Postmates or order from Uber? So industry innovation is very significant now. You've got to figure out a way to keep up with some of these other startup organizations that are changing the delivery game as far as how you get your food and get your products, versus still having to come down to a sit-down restaurant such as the Hard Rock Cafe. And of course, entertainment competition, we mentioned that in industry competition, so that should probably be made clear that industry competition referring to their their current, mostly known brand status, which is hotels and resorts. And then you've got entertainment competition, such as from, like I mentioned before, Live Nation. They do, as far as live entertainment, have some serious competition there. For iHeartMedia, we want to also address their strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. So they have success in entering new markets, being that they are the top audio organization and stations in over 850. They have mingled their way not into your major markets, but into your secondary and markets after that. Um, They've also got success in mergers and acquisitions. So that's typically how it goes in our industries. They are acquired by other studios or radio stations. And so they've actually had a significant history of acquiring those smaller stations, which expands their brands into those local markets and smaller, in those tertiary markets. I couldn't get that earlier. So your primary, secondary, and tertiary markets. And then they also have success in their overall portfolio of their brand. They have expanded into iHeart Music festivals, so you got some live entertainment there. They're in their radio station and audio is obviously their biggest field. Of course, with the industries changing, they have then transitioned to some podcasting and other audio platforms. So they've got a real good success in their portfolio as well. It's a very strong portfolio. They do have some weaknesses, failures outside of their core business model. So there's some research that shows that their current business model, they haven't really elevated from it, even though they have expanded in their portfolio a little bit as far as the industry's changed. Their business model, as far as how they are securing their revenue, has been a bit flawed, and so that's actually gotten them in some trouble in other areas as well. So they've got some issues there. Failures in financial cash flow. They do not have a history of good financial circumstances. And we'll get more of that later. But there's even been a recent bankruptcy declaration. So they have struggled quite a bit. They may seem quite popular, but they've got some financial woes. And then they've got failure in tangible products, services, and assets. So they can actually go beyond what they're currently offering as far as their audio foundation. And so that is considered a weakness because in the growing industry and age of experience and entertainment, people often want more tangible products and services that they can kind of get their hands on. And so if you haven't broken from your business model and figured out how to step into that, then that can also be a weakness for your organization as well. For their opportunities, they have an opportunity for expansion of their brand internationally. While they are significant here in the country, in the United States, taking their brand internationally would be quite a success for them, especially with the way that they've able to repetitively get their brand out there. Expansion of entertainment experiences it advertises for. So they actually do a lot of advertising, promotion, and marketing. And so, but they do not have quite the leverage as far as their entertainment experiences beyond the advertising portion. They have the iHeartRadio Music Festival, which, depending on the year, has been hit or miss. So they've got some opportunities that they can still take that, being the significant brand that they are. And then expansion of the brand into diverse segments based off consumers. They are in a lot of your major cities, but they can utilize demographics based off of their consumers to also segue into other areas. They can actually say, for example, even though they're radio, they can learn how to segue their radio, not just in local stations, by demographics. So let's say for Atlanta, which is where I currently am, a predominantly minority city, they can learn to segue a lot of their brand into more geared towards their consumers and customers versus, let's say, their demographics in Nashville. Some threats to their organization: international restrictions and versus the FCC regulations. So while we do see they can get an opportunity to go internationally, radio regulations, FCC regulations has actually put a bit of a halt to them actually expanding. So that's that is probably their top threat. Technological innovations. So radio is not dead, but currently in the in the audio innovation industry, we've gone beyond that. Podcasts have taken over, and while they've kind of dabbled into that, they've actually still got a lot more work to do as far as keeping up. So that's actually a threat to their work in radio, in top radio and satellite radio. And then, of course, media and audio competition. So they actually play a dual role, iHeartMedia, in audio and media. And so you've got other media outlets, such as, popular media outlets like BuzzFeed, popular media outlets like any one of your news organizations, that they're also publishing popular news as well. And the same thing goes for other audio organizations that are a threat to them as well. A host of other labels and record companies are dabbling into audio and to generate revenue in audio because they've seen this monopoly from organizations like iHeartMedia. So there is some threat to both of those organizations. There are some prominent problems you do want to go ahead and put on the forefront here for Hard Rock. We've identified that their prominent problems would be crisis management, a fluctuating customer base, brand equity, varied revenue margins, and industry competition. So a little bit about those. Crisis management is very important for brands and how they adhere to it. Hard Rock has had recent crisis management issues based on some circumstances that have happened, such as the missing persons and deaths in the Caribbean, or the unexpected death of a citizen from a Hard Rock building in New Orleans. So that's one of their major problems there. And coming back from crisis management is pretty significant. A fluctuating customer base, brand equity. So because they are involved in so many different sub-industries, fluctuating customer base brand equity can be a problem, because whereas one consumer may be basing their experience off of the dining services, another consumer may be having a bad experience based off of the casino experience. So with that inconsistency there, it can be damaging to the brand based on whatever experience they have, whether that's with live entertainment, the hotels and dining, the cafe. And so they are this big brand and they've expanded, so that actually is a problem for them. That also ties into their varied revenue margins. You've got some inconsistencies there, because whereas your casino operations may be driving in revenues and profits, you then have a live entertainment sector that is not quite as successful in those areas. Yet we're all still under the same brand. So we've got to figure out as well where those gaps lie. And then, of course, industry competition. That's definitely probably one of the top prominent problems as well. You've got competing top organizations, again, like Marriott International and Live Nation, that are creating problems for this organization, especially since they're on top of specific industries, whereas Hard Rock's kind of dabbling in all of them. For iHeartMedia, significant failings in their financial margins. They have gone from publicity in obtaining an IPO to bankruptcy. They've not been successful, and a lot of that comes from their acquisitions over the years, where they've taken on more debt than revenues and profits. So they have some serious issues as well. They have a complicated brand awareness. So most people think of iHeartRadio, but in fact, there's iHeartMedia and iHeartCommunications. And so you've got complicated brand awareness there for your consumers and customers, which is a significant issue when it comes to the brand equity and figuring out its place as far as how successful it is. Unable to position the brand, so brand positioning, because iHeartMedia does have these failings in their financial margins. They're not able to actually position themselves brand wise how they need to. You've got to actually position yourself with your customers and consumers by keeping up with whatever the technological innovations are as far as the industry in audio and in podcasting, um, app creations, websites, advertising. There are so many areas that you've got to position yourself, but unfortunately, since they've suffered in not only having this complicated brand awareness in their poor finances, they can't focus on how to maintain those associations with their customers and so on. Transitioning target markets based on industry changes and growth. You've got smaller markets, and unfortunately, they're growing. There's a small town that I used to live in called Worcester, Ohio. Cornfields, Amish people. But there's no way that an organization like iHeartMedia can transition that target market because of the industry. They're not able to keep up, or because they're not in those markets, they're not actually able to take what the industry is doing and put it into place into certain markets. So they've got some serious problems there. So we did come up with some short-term and long-term objectives for both brands. For Hard Rock International, short-term would be to improve the brand status within their industry competition, as well as to stabilize and improve their fluctuating CBB. For their long-term goals, which I need to identify short-term being 1 to 3 years fiscal or calendar year, basing on if it's financial or not. And long-term, same thing, 3 to 10 years fiscal or calendar based on finances. For Hard Rock, long-term, effectively implementing positive crisis management, improve from varied revenue margins. So we've got some goals for both of those. For iHeartMedia, their short-term goals would be to correct their complicated brand awareness and improve their brand positioning. Long-term would be to improve their financial margins, as well as successfully transition target markets. I do have to also point out that these short-term and long-term goals can actually, some of them can be mingled into, they can both be the same. So, improving financial margins could also be a short-term goal for the 1 to 3 years. We may want to see finances increase significantly in that time frame, but we also want to create longevity for improved financial margins for that 3 to 10 year marker as well. So that we did come up with some strategy ideas here. Strategic brand management will be implemented to successfully plan strategies and tactics over the course of the partnership to successfully complete the short-term and long-term goals. For improving brand status within the industry competition, and we're going through those problems that were presented. So this is just giving you those ideas, and a lot of this actually has the idea as well as a little bit of measurement in there, which measurement will come soon. The partnership for improving brand status within the industry competition, partnership will seek to understand the different demographics in their many target audiences. This includes the type of consumer/customer, what they look for in preferences, and what the previous experience they determined to be positive or negative. So that's got a little bit of measurement in there as well behind the strategy. And this goes through all of those problem areas that were discussed previously. So for improving the brand status within the industry competition, and this is still currently on Hard Rock International, the partnership will seek to understand the different demographics in their many target audiences. This includes, well, that's the same one. My apologies. Let's go to the next one. For stabilizing, improving the fluctuating CBBE, the partnership will do extensive research and implementation of customer/consumer experiences to address operations changes that provide CBBE longevity. So what that means is that there's going to have to be a lot of research and implementing based on their customer and consumer experiences to create long-term and consistent CVBE and not have it fluctuating based on if I had a bad experience at the casino, but had a great experience at the hotel. For effectively implementing positive crisis management, this is still Hard Rock. The partnership will examine past crisis management for both brands as well as other organizations in the same industries to structure crisis management plans that address all components of a brand crisis. So again, there's a little bit of measurement involved in that as well. So how we'll do that and how we'll gauge to see where we need to get to in the partnership to make sure that that's improved. For improving varied revenue margins, the partnership will address each individual sub-industry from both brands and analyze, research, and restructure tactics to increase revenue and provide consistency in their respective industries. For correcting complicated brand awareness, the partnership will analyze current brand awareness of both individual brands. From there, a rebranding plan may be put into place to provide either structure or clear brand representation, different from the previous branded house structure in place. So this is definitely pretty significant for both brands, actually. You've got several lines of Hard Rock international cafes, hotels, events, and you've got iHeartMedia, iHeartCommunications, iHeartRadio, and so on. For improving brand positioning, the partnership will address current products and services and correlate them to their majority respective target audiences and markets. This will allow a reduction in financial losses and provide targeted branding to improve the value curve of both brands individually and in the partnership. So that's pretty clear cut there. We want to hone in on exactly our respective target audiences and try to cut our losses by just putting out general, vague marketing, advertising, and so forth. For improving financial margins, the partnership will implement an extensive audit process to determine the current gaps financially in both brands and what areas need to be leveraged, reduced, and restructured. This is financial on both sides. That's pretty significant. An audit process is one of the best ways to go forth and see where we're missing the gaps financially. More strategy here. For successfully transitioning markets, the partnership will map out untouched markets, determine what industry specifics are missing in products and services, and implement planning to successfully introduce the needs of the market that contribute to the individual brands and the partnership to increase brand equity. So again, there's a little bit of there's strategy and measurement in behind that. So for my creative ideas of actually what we want to do with this partnership, some of these have already been done, some of them are new, but they can be a foundation for innovations, which is why they're here. So we've got the Hard Rock by iHeart marketing campaign, which has so much potential just from reading that. The Hard Rock Music Festival, the iHeart Music Festival, which there is no Hard Rock Music Festival, but iHeart Radio Music Festival has been done. But it needs to be leveraged, it needs to be restructured. There's still a lot more potential, especially with the way the experience for music festivals is currently. There's a lot of foundation and innovation there. Regular live entertainment performances from top artists in pop culture or artists in development. Artists in development are still very important to today. At all Hard Rock locations, hotels, resorts, dining locations, casinos, retail locations, and live entertainment. So we want to make sure that they are being utilized. Hard Rock's facilities are being utilized to draw in revenue and profits. We've got to get more entertainment in those spaces, putting that entertainment in non-traditional spaces. Experience merchandising. If you've got an artist at the retail store, have custom merch for that experience, as well as experience pop-up venues. Oftentimes we want to book a show. It's planned out in advance, maybe a year. It's at this venue, but the pop-up circuit, it's actually pretty popular, pretty successful as far as profit margins as well. So we want to create more experience pop-up venues as well. A few measurements I want to talk about. We'll also use financial metrics, preference metrics, and local market and output metrics as far as how we'll actually measure to see if our problems have improved and how the success of the partnership will go. Financial metrics, since both brands have recognized problems financially, an increase in both brands' financial revenue and profit will be the first determinant of success in the partnership. These metrics will highlight how the partnership is successful in its function. Preference metrics, these metrics will draw data from customer and consumers showing brand relevance. The variables will show to what extent the partnership has leverage over competitors. This is getting more to the emotional appeal, the associations, a little bit of brand positioning under the preference metrics. And then local market and output metrics with local markets and targeted audiences across various regions. These metrics will determine if an increase in brand equity takes place in a specific location, and even a specific location over another. Furthermore, output will specifically measure the specific marketing tactics implemented. Overall, this is important to the brand equity as it will provide data for long-term objectives being met. So output will specifically measure, what marketing was done and how it actually improved as far as the brand equity. So it gets into the specifics of what we actually did. So lastly, how and why will this partnership work? The creative ideas suggested are foundational experiences that provide a platform for both brands to utilize their positive brand equity and tangible resources. They will continue to draw in revenue and profits, and the longevity of the partnership can be innovative by expressing the ideas in different ways, I should say ways, my apologies, and our concepts that are that foster into reaching the short-term and long-term objectives and have specific strategies that are supportive to the success of the idea and the respective short-term and long-term objectives. So there's actually several supportive points there as to how we think that this partnership is going to be utilized based off the problems they exhibit, what suggestions we have, what creative ideas we have, and the strategies behind them. So we have determined, and by we, I mean me, that this will actually be a great partnership. There's a lot of potential entertainment-wise. There's a lot of demographics to examine, and we can put these non-traditional spaces to use that Hard Rock has and take this super popular association that iHeartMedia has and combine the two for a successful partnership for the long term. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. I appreciate you taking the time to watch it. Can't wait to get your feedback. Thank you for paying in today. Have a good one. Bye.